Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender at Blender HD. If you want to follow me there on Twitter, and it's Monday. It's Monday. You know what happens on Monday, people? It's Mondays with McCool, James McCool, PayDirt_DFS, the co-author with me of the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you could find at theoryofdfs.com. As always, this is what we do on Mondays. We don't go over yesterday's slate. We maybe talk about today's slate. Maybe it's 6 games. Who knows? We'll use some examples. Talk primarily strategy. If you have your DFS strategy questions, post them in the chat, in the YouTube chat. I see you, Edward Brown, Doug Montgomery, Suki Singh, Frederick Duke, Chewbacca, Matt Meir, Card Fan, Quinn Williams, Chandler Cannon. Hit that thumbs up button. Keep my apple juice cold in the morning. So, James, well, you've been so far this season. You've had what, 2 first places, right?
Second place and a first place.
A second and a first. Okay. Yeah. And you're playing less entries than I am. Yes, okay. Mm-hmm. Over this past week, I've gotten 3 top 10s, but none not in the top 5.
So you've gotten 3 new sets of knives.
Right, exactly. It's basically set of steak knives, right?
Yeah.
So you get close. Like yesterday on FanDuel, I think I came in 11th or something, and then like 2 days previous to that, it was like 7th. And these are the large field stuff. So we're not talking about like 7th out of 300. We're talking about like 7th out of like 45,000, right? Like 86,000 or whatever it is. So like this season, it's been what, 7 weeks? 7 weeks or so?
Just about, yeah.
And I play large field primarily. I've gotten, I think, 8 top 10s and like, I don't know, 15, 16 top 20s, but nothing in the top 5. I think 5th place. I think I came in 5th once or something, but it's like, it's these price structures are, it's 30,000 to first, 15,000 to second, 7,000 to third, 3,000 to fourth, 1,500 to fifth. Oh, here you go. Here's $1,500. And it's like, and then a lot of times it's like, here's 300. Here's 400, right? Like, and it's like, but I'm only 5 points away from 50,000. Up here you go. Here's your set of steak knives. Yep. So when that happens, like we've said numerous times that the difference between coming in like 10th and 1st is like there's nothing that if I were to ask you, James, what can I do to take my top 10, my top 5th to 15th place level? I must be doing something wrong, right? Getting, 10, 12, 14 of those. How do I finally get into the top 5? Is there anything that I could do? What would your answer be?
Just get luckier. Just get luckier. I mean, it's not even, it's never about that. We've talked about it before, and we've talked about it like on the Theory DFS too, on the Masterclass, where all you can really aim to do is be top 1%. That's it. If you aim to be top 1% and you end up in the top 1% and you don't win the contest, just like, well, all right, just get luckier next time, because you have to get lucky. I mean, with the last takedown that I had, 2 weeks ago? No, last week, because I didn't have one this week. With that takedown, I was in 4th place until literally the last at bat of the game, where I had Harold Castro and the Tigers have an RBI single in overtime to knock in Robbie Grossman, and I had both of them, and that's what put me in 1st. And otherwise, like, it's the difference between $2,000 and I think it was like $300 or something like that. So you just get lucky, man.
Right. And sometimes, sometimes you take a look at your lineups and you go, like, I'm 7 points behind first. And you're looking, and you have like one guy that, like, I think there was one slate. I forgot who, that had like a barrel to the wall, like it was like bases loaded, and it was a fly ball that if you watched it, you're like, that's hitting the wall in the gap, right? It's going to hit the top of the wall, and then the center fielder rushes and gets there in time. It's 2 outs. It's not even a stack fly, and it's like if that ball would have landed, it would have been at least a 2 RBI double. And then on FanDuel, I mean and then I have the stack. So like the extra point, and then you look and it's like, oh, I would have won first place by like 5 points. It's like that difference. That's the difference between coming in the top 20th place. We had that slate, the Nutso slate, a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk about the Nutso, the one where NBA score, it was like NBA scoring.
Oh yeah, yep.
I had a top 10. I had like 7th place in that. Sitting there with Teoscar Hernandez with 9 points, going, really, you couldn't do more than that? And normally, maybe a lineup with 336 would have like won the contest normally. I'm not going to be one of those people that complain about that. We all know why that happens.
Yeah.
There's a lot of high scoring, a lot of high-owned players are getting there, and that's the way it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the slate where the Braves put up 20 runs. And I have a 4-main Brave stack, and then Glasnow pitched against the Rays, which made the Blue Jays completely underowned.
Yep.
And I had 3 Blue Jays. I had Teoscar. Vlad had 2 home runs, and Semien had 47 points on. He didn't have a home run, but he had a double, a triple. He had a bunch of stuff.
Whole bunch, yeah.
Right. And then like a one-off, whatever. I forgot who. Probably what it was like. It was one of those slates where like 4 guys hit 2 home runs and 1 guy hit 3 home. Like we had Winker had 3 home runs. 65 points. It's like, well, I didn't have him as a one-off in that lineup. And you're looking, it's like the winning score was like 364.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Right. Hilarious. And I'm sitting there 339 in like 7th place with my nice little, like what, $350, $400 or whatever the hell it was. 500. I don't know what it was. But sometimes you sit there going, if I would have changed this, if I would have changed that. But the thing that I don't do is if I would have changed Teoscar Hernandez to someone else that didn't have 9 points, well, then it wouldn't have been a 4-3-1 lineup. Like it goes against what I was going. It was like I'm not going to change. I'm not going to like try to re-engineer a lineup like tilt wise because you're going there going if I would have only Freddie Freeman in that lineup only had 15 points.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I could have replaced Freddie Freeman with someone else at the catcher first base spot, but then it wouldn't have been a 4-man Brave stack. Then it would be a 3-3-2 lineup, but and I wasn't building those. So I don't think even when you reassess the lineups that you're building, like if it's not part of the strategy you would have done anyway, to me, there's no point in even looking at it. Like it's just like, if there are plenty of times where I've mentioned on the show that I take the strategic approach of like stacking against the chalk SB2 and fading the chalk SB2, and the chalk SB2 like puts up 40 points and like I'm dead. Like that's I gotta go on to the next day. But I'm saying like I shouldn't have done that. It's like, well, that was the basis of my strategy. I mean, like I knew that was the possibility that I could get burned completely or not get burned completely. Or when I see a lineup at the top of the thing with that's a whole bunch of one-offs, right? It's 8 one-offs. It's 2 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 whatever. And I go, what was I going to do? I'm not playing those lineups. Like there's that someone got lucky and won. Same thing with the if I make a strategic, I'm not stacking this team. If I cross them off the list and they put up 15 runs, like what would I have done? Was there anything? And I look at their ownership and they're over-owned. I mean, like it still comes down to if the information that I have now, would I have still done the same thing? Like, and if the answer is yes, like what? Then I just lose that day and that's it.
Yeah, people struggle a lot with just saying that, like, oh, you just lose that day. People struggle with that so badly. And I see it a lot of the time and like a lot lately, because lately the chalk has been doing really, really well. Like this last week, I can always tell if the chalk is doing well because I go and look at my roto tracker and it's just like, so like the chalk has been doing really, really well for the last week. And people think and they're like, oh, well, I should just be playing the chalk. Or if I'd have just, stuck with the lineup where it was everybody who was over 30% owned, like then I would have cashed or like, things like that. But it's the idea of loss aversion and the idea of losses being more painful than wins. Like when you win really, really well, it, for some reason in human psychology, does not feel as good comparatively to when you lose even a little bit. Like people just are so averse to losing, but you have to lose a lot if you're playing the right way to actually win big GPPs. If you're playing large field GPPs, you should never be mad about the money that you lost in there because you're going to lose it 95% of the time. You should just expect to lose it on that. So people, when they lose, they look for all these reasons of like, oh, well, I could have done this. I could have done this. I could have done this. It's like most of the time, the vast majority of the time, the decisions that you made were probably fine. If you're playing the right way, if you're listening to smart people, like the decisions that you made were probably fine. And you just lost a variance. And that's going to happen, dude. You can't be mad about variance not going your way. You're not going to win every slate. You're going to lose the majority of your slate. So don't tilt it. Look at it. See if you can figure out, okay, well, maybe I should have chosen this combination rather than this combination of like a 2v2 or something like that. But that decision really only comes down to like, when you were building your lineup, did you actually follow the projections and did you follow things the best way that you could? And if you did,
if they were accurate, if your strategic assessment, that's how I view it, James, and as I think both of us do it this way, is that you look and it's not always going to be accurate. Like your assessment, even the ownership projections that you have, the player projections they're not 100% accurate. Sometimes you have to adjust. Sometimes you look and you go, no, this pitcher is going to be much higher owned. Mm-hmm. This pitcher is going to be much lower owned. Where something happens, we had that Velasquez get scratched type of thing.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
And he was still 20% owned in contest, and I still lost that day. How was that?
Oh, I got crushed that day, but it was hilarious.
But you have to assess at that moment, like, where's all this ownership going?
And it was right? Yeah.
But and what ended up happening, see, this is what ends up happening though. Velasquez, like I was over on Smiley on that slate, and I started jamming in Marlins because obviously if people were playing Velasquez, the Marlins were going to be lower. Mm-hmm. But what ends up happening is that a lot of sharper players did that, and it made the Marlins the second most owned team on the slate, right? And it made Smiley jump from like 20% owned to 60% owned. Because who else are you playing on that slate? And what we're talking about last week.
Well,
so now I look at my lineups and I go, these Smiley Marlins lineups are like now they're like if I would have known that the Marlins were going to end up being 15 to 20% owned, like these lineups don't make sense anymore. Like these, like I'm pairing the Marlins, I'm putting in the Marlins in my lineups as if they're low owned, when in fact they're the second most owned stack. So now I wouldn't have built these lineups had I known that beforehand. So it doesn't matter to me if that wins. I would look at that. If I would look at a winning lineup like that and go, I got lucky putting in a bad lineup and winning with a bad lineup. So it's the same way that I would look at if I lost with, I look at my lineups very similar to MMA. I can tell whether or not I made good lineups in MMA once lock hits. That's it. But everything else doesn't matter because all I do is go in to Excel. I count my lineups. I go, how many uniques do I have? How many times is each lineup duplicated? And then I can tell right there, did I make good lineups? And then I do. Sometimes I have lineups that I guess I played this lineup that was duplicated 88 times. Mm-hmm. I guess I was playing this lineup that's duplicated 62 times. And I'm like, okay, those are bad lineups. But then I have a whole bunch of 1Z, 2Z, 3Z ones. And I go, okay, I'm good. And then, of course, the slate happens. And unless one of those unique ones come up, you lose. That's the way it is. But that's how I'm judging it right there. Same thing in MLB where you look, once lock hits, once these games lock, you go, the plans that I had for these lineups were based on X player projections, X ownership projections, and the contest that you're in. So based on that, looking at was this pitcher that I thought was going to be 22% owned, what is he owned? Sometimes it happens the other way. Sometimes a pitcher that I think is going to be, I don't know, 16% owned ends up 4% owned. And when that happens, I go, damn, I should have played more of him, right? I should have him in more lineups. I was actually playing him like, okay, I'll have some of him. Now, there's also times where it goes the other way. You go, I'm playing someone I think is going to be 16% owned, and they end up 35% owned, and I go, I think I'm playing too much of them, right? Now these lineups don't make sense anymore. But also the lineups that have, when it goes the other way, when he ends up being really like 1% owned, I go, wow, these lineups actually have way more leverage than I need.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could have paired this pitcher with the Chuck Stack now, and I didn't make lineups like that because I thought he was decently enough owned that there were different ways to go. But none of what any of that is has anything to do with the results. Like none of that. None whatsoever. And there are plenty of times that I've built bad lineups that have, I guarantee you that some of the lineups that have come in the top 20 this season have been bad lineups. Have been lineups that at the time that I made them, based on my projections, I think are plus EV. And then once ownership locks, I go, oops. Oopsie. They're more owned than I thought. Okay, they weren't sneaky, right? Or the other way. Or it's like, wow, okay, I have a lineup that is a cumulative ownership of 65. And I'm like, did I need to go that far? Did I need to get, okay, well, anything could happen. Like it's one of those types of things, but you'll know that not by the results, just by, well, now all this information has opened up. The incomplete information has become complete. Of course, you can't make any changes now. And now you look at the lineup and you go, well, based on this ownership and based on these players, is this a lineup that you would have made before the slate start? If the answer is yes, like, is there a reason to tilt?
I mean, if you didn't make money, yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure. I guess there's a reason, but I mean, there's no lot, like there's nothing that would have changed other than stuff that you can't control.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's just you can't get mad about the results, and people need to learn that, because getting mad about the results, like, what are you going to do? You can't control the future. You can only put yourself in position to take advantage of what happens in the future. And that's why you have to build lineups that are able to like have some sort of relative value and actually put you in the top 1% of contests, rather than building lineups that if everybody is right, now you get to cash in the top 15th percentile and like, congrats on maybe 2xing your money, maybe. And that's the problem that people have, is they look at the way that these slates come out. Like if the Rays are going to be 35% owned and the Nationals are projected to be like 30% owned, but they're up against Matt Harvey. So like, I already know that they're 45% owned. Things like that. If you pair the Rays and the Nationals together and you look at your lineup and you're like, okay, well, I have literally all of the chalk here. And then the chalk goes off. It's like, okay, that's good. But did you win? Did you end up like banking the contest because of it? Probably not. Not unless everything went your way and you had like a 1% pitcher and a 1% hitter that both like found their ceiling games on that. But even then, you're taking these contests where you have 30,000 people, 20,000 people, and you are having the same exposures as 30% of the field. You know what happens over the long term? You end up finishing 30th percentile in that field, because that's where all of the exposures are. That's where all of the ownership is. If you build lineups that have the same lineups as 30% of the field, then like you're just going to match 30% of the field. So
right, on yesterday's slate, for instance, Juan Soto on FanDuel in the big GPP was 40% owned.
Yeah, same on DraftKings.
40%. Yeah. It was a 10-game slate.
Yeah.
40%.
Hilarious. I know.
You got a 0.
Yeah.
And the Nationals didn't, it's not like the Nationals did badly.
No.
The stack
but you didn't
come
need them to win the slate either.
No, of course not. Yeah, the Nationals, no, of course not. But the fact that there's a 40% owned hitter on a 10-game slate, like you have to be willing. You go as far as X them out, but you don't have to. You just play them in less lineups. But you have to be willing to have. You have to have some some
conviction, some
right.
chutzpah.
That a 40% owned hitter is no matter who they are, is overowned.
It's like
no matter
twice
who they
as
are.
they should be. Yeah.
Right. So you have to be willing to say, I'm not playing this guy. And if he doesn't put up a ceiling, because remember, even if he hits a home run, 14 points, I mean, you get 14 points from a lot of other people. So it's like, even then, that's not the end of the world, because you could just replace it by someone else's home run, right? I mean, like, whatever. You have to say 40%, like, if that guy gets a 3 or a 6 or a 0 or whatever, he busts 40% busts. Like you before any points are even in your lineup, you automatically are passing. You're eliminating first place equity from like 40% of the field, and you have to be willing to okay. If I'm not playing Soto, then who am I playing? Now you've eliminated 40% of ownership in your lineup. Now this guy's now the options have opened up to you. But what happens, James, and we've seen it this year, you get Austin Meadows at 36% owned, and he double dongs, right? As a one-off. Acuna is like, I think one slate was 45% owned.
Against his own pitcher.
Right.
It was that slate. It was that slate where people were like literally going out of their way to play Acuna against their own pitcher, because they're like, oh, well, you just eat the home run against your pitcher. It's like, you're insane.
Yeah, but he did.
It doesn't matter.
But that's what I mean. People are scared. People get scared. Like, obviously, Acuna, but you have, obviously, Acuna's in a great spot, and I'm not going to play Bryce Harper in this matchup. And it's like maybe, or just don't make a lineup that needs a $6,000 outfielder.
Yeah.
And just hope they sometimes, like on FanDuel, for instance, like on yesterday's slate, for instance, there weren't that many expensive stacks. Like the reason why someone like Soto was as high owned on FanDuel, because there was no place to spend your money. There was no high price, like Wheeler was the highest priced pitcher at 10.5, and he wasn't even the chalkiest pitcher. So like he was close to it, but there were pitchers in the 8 Max Fried in the 8K range. People played Luis Castillo, and I stacked against him. So that salary typically goes somewhere. And at the high end, you had basically Acuna, and you had Soto against Matt Harvey. So people just spent the money. And I found when I was building, because I built 100 lineups on FanDuel, and I was trying to go under on the Nationals, obviously, because they were going to be chalk. And no matter what I did in the builds that I was originally making, I kept on getting Trey Turner and Soto, because it's the highest price, basically the highest price shortstop and the highest price outfielder. And I'm not getting them in stacks. I'm getting them as one-offs, because if I wanted to play a Baltimore stack 4-man, like even with Wheeler, where does the money go? Like the money there's no other people to spend it on. So you know what I did? I'm making lineups that leave 2,000 on the table. Like a lineup that literally could have Soto in there, but instead of Soto, I'm playing a $2,500 one-off. I'm playing, someone else in the stack, right? That's why I was getting a lot of Wheeler, which was a great idea, because I got a lot of Wheeler yesterday. But people are scared to do that. They're scared to build a lineup that it's like, okay, I have the money for Soto. I'm building a contrarian stack or whatever, and then you plug in Trey Turner and Soto because you have 4,600 per position. Like they're filling that in, Turner and Soto, and still leaving 400 on the table. And they're like, well, why shouldn't I just play the best players in those positions? And my attitude is, you can, but maybe, this still is baseball. They get 4 at bats or whatever. Go down from Soto and go down to the $3,000 range. There's someone in that range. We're going to see on today's slate, it's going to be very similar.
Oh,
today's slate, there's like no one. Today's slate, there are pitchers to pay down for and no one, and players to pay up for, but they're in bad matchups. Like that's what's going to happen today. So what's going to end up happening is that some of these expensive players, because I'm looking on the bat projections right now, just to use as an example. We have Frankie Montas against Seattle on DraftKings at 6,200. We have David Peterson at home against Colorado at 7,000. We have Gomber against the Mets look like a minor league team at this point. He's 5,600. So you have Snell at 89. You have Woodruff at 10,6. But really, like, it's much more likely that you're playing at least one of these two cheap guys. But then you look at the high end of bats. Tatis against Woodruff. Cruz against Means if he's in. Okay, maybe you could do something like that. Cruz against lefties, that's a narrative, right? Tim Anderson against Kim. Okay, that's doable. Jose Ramirez against Turnbull. Are you paying $5,600 for Laureano? $5,500 for Mancini? Arenado against Lynn? Story against Peterson in New York? Abreu against, like, some of these guys are going to be way, I mean, because you're going to have the money, right? I mean, like, but when I list all these off, are you thrilled about playing any of these guys in these matchups?
Tim Anderson. But I mean, outside of that, no, not really.
But you're going to see a lot of people that Jose Ramirez is going to be owned today.
Yeah.
I mean, against Turnbull, that's fine. I mean, that's fine, but he's 5,800. But the only reason is because you're gonna spend up at shortstop or third base or both today because you're going to be able to with the pitching that we have today. But what's going to end up happening is that if, let's say you pay up for a one-off Tim Anderson and a one-off Jose Ramirez, and they put up threes, right? Tim Anderson gets a single. Jose Ramirez gets a single and a run. Like, someone that's like, we go to third base position, let's say, I mean, you could go like Jeimer Candelario against Henkes could easily outscore Jose Ramirez today.
Yeah.
Right? Michael Franco against Shoemaker. Seager against Montes. I mean, Donaldson against Means. Like, Jose Ramirez is 5,800, but play the lineup that you have and just go down from Ramirez to Seager. As long as you're not playing Montes in that lineup and leaving 1,600 on the table. Most people are not going to do that. And then if you do that, and you're like, oh, well, now I have the money to spend up at outfield. And it's like, okay, now you're going to be playing you're going to have the same problem there.
Yep.
The salary is just going to make it that people are going to pay up for the sake of paying up. And from a raw point median perspective, that would be correct. But from a game theory perspective, like, you don't have to. The variance between these players are high enough that I'm not saying to leave 5,000 on the table. But I think that we could build lineups that, I mean, I could do this right now. Like, if I built here, let's number of unique players. Let's do two or three, 100. Let me put it at 49.5. That most people spend, within 500 of their salary. And I'm gonna okay. Let me put on some stacks. 5x, 100. So it looks like real lineups, not like just one-off type lineups. Now, based on the bat projections, we're gonna get a lot of cheap pitchers. Put some zeros here so we can build. But you could see this effect by just building 100 lineups like this. I'm assuming we're going to get a lot of you're going to be paying up for seemingly no reason, quote unquote, in at least one or two positions. Probably shortstop, third base, and an outfield.
Yeah, I'll bet you end up getting like 100% Jose Ramirez, 50% or 60% of Tim Anderson and Fernando Tatis. Like, dude, you have the money for it. The distribution of points at third base is just going to, like, with Jose Ramirez projected at like 10.5 and Nolan Arenado being the second highest is 7.7. The optimizer is just going to force in Jose Ramirez, even if they're not Cleveland stacks. So, especially considering all of the pitchers, there were 3 pitchers under 7K projected for the same as the top projection on an expensive pitcher. So Woodruff was at like 19. He's the most expensive pitcher. And
you're looking at the bat or your own projection?
I was looking at the bat. I was just looking at what you were looking at.
Right.
I haven't ran my projections yet. So that, I mean, you're just going to get 100% of paying up at third base and shortstop.
Right. And you get a lot of too cheap pitcher lineups.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's see what we get here.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Jose Ramirez, 75%. Mancini, 66%. Austin, basically it's jamming in Orioles stacks. Right. We say the number one lineup, projected lineup, is Montes Peterson, paying up for Garver, Mancini one off, Cruz one off, and an Indian stack.
That's actually way less Tim Anderson than I thought that we were going to see.
Well, it's putting in Tatis, because Tatis has more raw points.
Yeah.
Not by that much, but still 29% Tatis, 20% Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Then we take a look at pitcher. We get Peterson, Montes, Snell, Lynn, Gomber. Right? Because even a pitcher it's trying to spend, like it's just catcher. Severino, Mercedes, Hedges for the Indian stacks. First base, just all the Mancini, who's 5,500, but where are you spending the money? Even if you take a look at first place, for first base is kind of a dead zone. Second base, Cesar Hernandez, Stevie Wilkerson, because just trying to make Orioles stacks.
And it's spread out, yeah.
Right? And then in the outfield, Hayes, Cruz, Mullins, Santander, Luplo, Rosario, but then it's like Canha. I assume in order for me to make different lineups, I need to like lower my min salary because even
pretty interesting that it's super heavy on the Orioles.
Only because of raw points. Right?
Oh, so facing Shoemaker. Okay.
Attacking Shoemaker, but it's more of the once you put in it's just trying to spend money. Like what stacks can you play?
Right. So what it's doing
like a tiger stack, won't I can't even spend the money.
Right. And the only way that you can spend the money is to pay up. I mean, like the raw points from Trey Mancini and spending up means that you're going to get Baltimore stacks. The raw points and the price of Jose Ramirez means that you're going to get Cleveland stacks.
Right.
And that's why we see so much Orioles in Cleveland at the top of it, just for people.
But if we limited ourselves, if I limited the Peterson Montes combos or Gomber or whatever, whoever's in there, and I was paying up more for Snell and Woodruff, then obviously you'd get cheaper stacks.
Yep.
You wouldn't be getting that. But to me, this is how you see. This is an easy way to see, like, oh yeah, this is the dynamics of the slate. And it's just like, oh, do you want to pay $5,500 for Mancini? Well, Mancini may end up being higher owned because we don't have ownership yet. He may end up being, if Mancini we have projected for 6% ownership, it's like maybe not.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have to, you don't have to spend the money, but most people spend the money, spend the salary, unless we figure that the expensive pitchers are going to go higher on than we think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's going to end up happening is that it's going to be an up and down pitching build. I don't think people are going to build the two. I think what's going to end up happening is that Snell and Woodruff or something like that. Snell, Lynn, Woodruff, like it's going to be one of those, and then one of Gomber, Montes, or Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it's going to go up and down, something like that. More likely.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see when ownership comes out.
This looks like
but this is what I mean by like building, like seeing what the lineups look like, see what the ownership could possibly be, and see which ways the field is going to go. Then hopefully you get you do this and you come in ninth place again, right? Like me, 12th place, 11th place.
Yeah, it sucks when that happens. But this is a really good exercise that you can do to just kind of get an idea of where people are going to be building out their lineups. There's a lot of people in my community that will go into lineup HQ and they'll like run the optimizer and see who's getting really popular, see who's getting a lot of ownership, blah, blah, blah. Because so many people use the bat projections, so many people use lineup HQ that it's a pretty decent proxy for where things are going to be. But like for example of what we were talking about earlier, where when you were building out lineups, if you were to go in And like after doing what you just did, if you were to go in and say, okay, what it looks like is people are going to be spending their salary. So people are probably going to be playing Mancini, playing Jose Ramirez, playing Fernando Tatis, these kinds of things. You see this, and then a plan that you could make is, okay, what I think is going to happen is people are going to play probably some combination of Snell and one of these cheap pitchers. They're going to play Indian stacks probably, or Orioles stacks, because they need to be able to spend the money, and the raw points are going towards Jose Ramirez, Trey Mancini, these guys. You could build out a strategy based on those assumptions. Later, you'll have ownership and you'll be able to kind of, flesh this out a little bit more. But you could go into this and say, okay, knowing that, I want to put together a strategy that pays up for both pitchers and then avoids having the problem of trying to spend all my salary and therefore needing to go to these positions. It'll drop me down at shortstop. It'll drop me down at third base. It'll drop me down at first base, something like that. And then build competitive lineups that way so that you are avoiding what the majority of the field is trying to do. The other option,
let's do that now. So let's do that now.
Yeah.
As an example, I'm going to lock in Snell and Lynn.
Perfect.
Okay. So we're locking them in. So we're just basically it's not like you would normally do this and play them in all your lineups, but I'm going to lock both Snell and Lynn, and I'm going to X out Ramirez and Mancini and Cruz.
So right now, the top projected lineup is 110.59.
Right.
So let's see where we get.
Okay. So I'm going to build 100.
Yep.
This is Xing out Ramirez. Now, obviously, some Snell Lynn lineups could have Mancini or Ramirez or Cruz.
Sure.
But if we're predicting them as of this moment, it could be different later, that they're going to be very popular pay up one-offs. You may not want to have them. Okay, here's 100. I'm still getting a lot of not a lot of Orioles stacks just without Mancini.
But your projection is 106.31.
Right.
You only lost 4 points. You crossed out 3 of the highest owned players on the slate and 3 of the highest upside players. I mean, Jose Ramirez, Trey Mancini, and Nelson Cruz. It's not like those guys have bad projections. And you are still within 5 points of the top projected that you got when you were just running things just baseline.
Right. But even this, if the top projected, this is the top one right now is 106 without those guys. The 100, even with those guys, I have lineups that are underneath that. I have 107s, here's a 106. Here's a 106 lineup with Jose Ramirez in it. Here's a 105 lineup with Jose Ramirez in it. And Nelson, both Ramirez and Nelson Cruz are in this lineup right here. 105.72. Right? Snell's in that lineup. And then we go back to any build that doesn't have them in it. Look, I got to 106.31. Let's say we X out. Let's do this. Let's X out the Orioles. Are they going to be popular in this slate? Is that just going to be a thing, or is that just
seems like it? Yeah.
Okay. So let's say, okay, instead of making Oriole stacks, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the stack. I'm going to cap. I'm just going to cap everyone at 10%. Okay. So I'm forcing the optimizer to build, at least give me Mets. They may be bad lineups in general, but at least give me some of as many as possible. Just so we don't get a ton of Baltimore. But what ends up happening is if I X out Baltimore, just the next highest projected stack is just going to be in all my lineups also.
Yep.
Right? If we just use this experiment. So I just want to keep it at 10%. So now I'm going to build, and it's just going to hit me a whole mess load of stacks. A 5X stacks. Without Ramirez or Cruz, without any of that. Without any of this. Okay, with Snell and Lynn locked. So you still get Austin Hayes as a one-off a ton, right?
Yep.
Right. You still get. So here's an Orioles stack. Do these work? Okay, we're soon going to be getting these to work. They're working on it in where you could click on the team and in the lineups from the team come up on
That'd
the
be
side.
Cool. Yeah.
Little quick link, just like you could do with the players. But here, let's go through. We got 106 as our top, which we already said is fine. Here's another Orioles stack. We're going to get a ton of. Here's a Tigers.
105.
Right, with Lynn and Snell, which is not going to be a popular combination, probably. Tigers, Indians, Orioles, Tigers, White Sox.
104.
104.5. With Donaldson one off, Hayes one off. And a Scope one off.
That Donaldson one off is hot.
So let's go through. Okay, Orioles, Indians, Tigers, White Sox. Let's see the next team. Still get more of that. Got any more? Come on. Let's see. Okay, Twins.
102.
Right, 102 isn't that bad at all.
And that one, like, if you don't cross out Cruz, then twin stacks probably end up 105-ish, 106, something like that. Like, you're still going to have twin stacks be able to compete with those top overall stacks projected.
Let's see what else we got here. Twins, Tigers, Indians, Twins, Indians, Padres against Woodruff. 102 median. Padres, Twins, A's against Kikuchi. 101. Right? That's still playable, obviously. Padres, Twins, Mariners against Montes, which obviously that's going to be a leverage stack. 101. And Tatis against Woodruff.
Pretty good.
And a two-man Tigers. 101. Let's go down further. Let's see. Yeah, we're down to 100. Here's a Met stack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you did Peraza, VR, McCann, Maven, Smith, Mullins one off Tatis, Jose Abreu with Lance. Like, this is a contrarian lineup.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yeah. Contrarian
Lynn
is
and
one
Snell,
word.
which means you're not playing any of those cheap pitchers. The one-offs are, Abreu, Tatis. Mullins is whatever, but here's the lineup. It's off of the top projected 5-man optimal, using everyone in the player pool, with not locking this in and leaving all the Cruz, the Ramirez, and Mancini in. That lineup is 110.
Yeah.
This is 99.5. 10 points in baseball is what? It's less than a homer. It's less than one swing of a bat.
Yeah.
Okay. And this lineup. So based on that, what's wrong with this lineup?
Well, it's the Mets.
But yeah, I know.
Outside
but I'm
of
just saying, from a median perspective compared to the other one, this lineup is likely you're giving up 10 points and likely will be like 5 times less owned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is a lineup that probably would be plus EV. High variance though, but still plus EV.
Yeah.
This would be one of those lineups where it has first place equity or last place equity. So if you were playing 20 lineups, if you're like, I'm going to play 20 Met stacks, well, be prepared to lose it all. Or win, it's like the EV. People don't understand the difference that the distribution when it comes to expected value. Like 2 lineups could, for instance, this lineup, if we played this slate out 10,000 times, this Met stack lineup could have the same expected value as this Orioles lineup up here. Same from a monetary perspective. So you run it out 10,000 times. This lineup up here comes in first place probably slightly less often, but also comes in the top 10% way more often than the other lineup. You come in 147th place, you come in 40th place, you come in 868th place. So once you do that 10,000 times, it does hit first place a couple of times, right? Out of 10,000 trials, let's say it hits 3 times or whatever. but it cashes a lot more often. It doesn't come in last place a lot more times. So it equals out to X EV. That Met stack, like it wins 5 times, but when it doesn't win, it doesn't even come in 800. I mean, like it either wins, it's either up here, or it's not cashing at all. So once you divide that by 10,000, the numbers are the same. Same exact EV. It's just that in order to realize the EV of the Mets lineup, like the Mets have to put up 12, like it's going to win. And if the Mets only put up 4 runs today, that lineup is not even cash. Like you're towards the bottom. Now, when you're building a portfolio of lineups, you have to take that into account. You don't have, I mean, you should take that into account when it comes to that. This is part of bankroll management. This is part of risk management. If 2 lineups are equal EV, should you be playing the one with the high, with the more wider distribution, the more binomial distribution, or should you be playing the one that is a little bit flatter? If you have an unlimited bankroll, the answer is you play the one with the highest win equity, and that's it. Right? It doesn't, the swings don't matter anymore if you have infinite bankroll. The smaller a bankroll you have, the more percentage of your bankroll that you're playing, the more likely you should lean towards lineups that are more like this. As long they still have enough leverage, they still like remember the EV of both lineups are the same, right? And maybe the EV of all 20 lineups that you're playing are the same. But the distribution of that, of how you realize that EV is going to be different between those lineups. So that's why when I play, since I play such a small percentage of my bankroll per slate, I tend to play more lineups that look like, how do I win first place or lose nothing? Because, right, you're a similar way.
Yeah.
Now, if you're playing 5 to 10% of your bankroll a slate, you should probably have a lot more of your portfolio in these types of lineups because your risk of ruin by playing, Met stacks, or if you're going to play 20 stacks, 20 lineups, you can play 1 Met stack. You could play 2 Met stacks. Would I play 18 Met stacks? Probably not, because you don't have infinite bankroll. But what is correct? They're both correct. They're both like there's no expected value difference. So when people ask, like, how many of which team do I play? I have 20 lineups. Should I play 5 stacks? It's like you just build good lineups. Your diversification is all dependent on what your risk tolerance is. It has nothing to do with what's correct or not correct. There's not. I could probably find on this slate with 12 teams coming up. If I ran it through, if I simulated it out, I could probably find a 5-man stack of every team, a lineup that all 12 lineups are equal to one another or nearly equal. Now, there may be more plus EV lineups from certain teams versus others, but I guarantee you I could find a Rockies line, a 5-man Rockies lineup that equals in EV to a 5-man Orioles or a 5-man Tigers. There just may not be as many 5-man Rockies, but I could probably find one that all 12 teams, I could find lineups that they have different players in the other spots. And then you ask me, well, which one do you play? Well, mathematically, they're equal to one. I mean, whichever one you want. Yeah. But the standard deviations, it's very similar, James, to how projections are. Right? You take a look at the median fantasy points and go, oh, Tommy Edman, 8 points. Rougned Odor, 8 points. They're the same, right? Like, no, they're not. Odor rarely gets 8 points, right? He gets 0 or 14. Edman gets like 6 to 9 way more often. So it's like you're looking at those types of things. So when people are like, well, how many of whatever, like that's a risk management, a diversification question, not a one lineup is correct and one lineup isn't correct. Because when you build your 20 sets, I know that you don't just go whole hog into like Like, I guess I'm playing 20 Met stacks this slate because that like you don't do. But do you do it like I do, where I'm much more likely if I'm playing 20 max to basically pretty much X out the top 2 projected stacks completely. And if I get, and then I'm more likely to diversify. Maybe I'll have one Met stack. I'll have one of this. I'm basically playing my 20 set for if the truck fails.
Mm. Yeah. Well, what I usually do is I'll look and I'll find the leverage points on a slate. So like after I run my simulations, I have from my data what teams are going to have the top score the most often. And I have an algorithm for determining leverage based on those stacks against what the field is projected to do. So like if I look at things and I say, all right, well, the Rays have like a 4% chance of being the top overall scoring team, and they're projected with 120% aggregate ownership. Well, not going to play them. The Nationals, like the Nationals yesterday, were pretty appropriately owned on DraftKings, but over owned on FanDuel for their percentage chance of being like top overall team. But I knew yesterday that looking at the percentages, I was like, Nationals against Matt Harvey, that they're going to be higher owned than what things going to say. So I just crossed them out, and crossing out the Rays and the Nationals, or crossing out
as a stack. You're crossing them in as a stack. It doesn't mean that they can't be in your lineups otherwise.
Well, I don't run singles. I only run stacks. So for me,
so you're doing what? You're doing 5-3s on DraftKings?
5-3-4-4. 5-3-4-4.
Okay, so yeah, so so basically you get 0% of them.
Zero.
So you're not even playing the chalk 3-man. You're not even doing contrary. Okay. That's much higher variance than I thought you were doing.
That depends. Like if there is a situation where I know that I can have like 2 way under-owned pitchers, then like maybe I'll take the 3-man from the Nationals yesterday. Maybe, because then I'm going to have 2 pitchers that are like 10-15% owned or whatever. But if I like am projecting that the top 2 owned pitchers are going to be like the best pitchers, I'm not gonna eat the secondary stack on like the Nationals if they're going to be 40% owned Juan Soto, 40% owned Trey Turner. Like that, there's no reason for me to do that. So I play higher variance than you, and I've known that because like you spread out a lot. I spread only to like 4 to 7 teams per slate. I take really heavy stands on things, so I will hedge my pitchers sometimes, but for the most part, like I'll cancel out the top 2 projected owned teams if they are negative leverage. And then most of the time, like the teams that are towards the bottom of my projections and like don't have great top score equity, those guys are going to be negative leverage anyway. So I'm not going to take them. So I'm pretty condensed when I build out my stacks. I'm not like, I wouldn't have Met stacks today, because I only have 20 lineups and I want to be able to have a core that is very tight. I distribute between the stacks. Like I place a 30 to 35% cap on hitters. So I'm spreading out a lot between my stacks, but I like to have my core be certain teams. I like to have a really heavy focus on certain teams.
Right. Me, I'm just looking to build as many plus EV lineups with as much diversification as possible.
Yeah.
So I'm much more likely on this slate. Like it's a 6-game slate. I'm playing DraftKings today, not FanDuel, because DraftKings has the $12. Whenever DraftKings lowers their entry fee
over there,
GPP, I play on DraftKings because FanDuel. I mean, I actually think FanDuel's easier. I think FanDuel's softer. But I go back and forth. I can do both sides, but on a 6-game slate, I'm not going to invest all the money on a 6-game slate. I'd rather do it on a much bigger slate. But today on DraftKings, I mostly play 5X. And which means that if there's chalk one-off hitters, I just cap them individually. And I don't mind playing I don't mind like I'm going to be playing 100 lineups. Like I don't mind playing some chalk 5-man stacks. And if there's 12 teams on a slate, most likely I will have a stack, at least one lineup with a stack of every team. Like I will most likely. I don't know. I don't. Is there any team that I'm willing to X off today? Like just looking at the player pool.
Against
I'm not sure.
Pitchers?
Like let me take a look. Let me take a preliminary look at the stack projections. Let's take a look. And this is only early. This is, I mean, who knows what gets changed. So I'm going to take a look at the stacks page for DK. I'm going to take a look just at ceiling. Oh, wow. The Rockies are low. The Rockies, the Mariners, and obviously the Mets. But the Mets aren't as low as some of these other teams. Yeah, maybe I don't play the Rockies. Maybe I'm just playing a lot of David Peterson today.
Yeah, I just ran projections. I'll see. I mean, like just off the top of my head, I think probably the Brewers and the Rockies would be low, but I'll see here in a second.
Right, but this is what I look at. I go, it depends. For me to play the Rockies on the slate, David Peterson would have to be super chalk.
Right.
If he's not going to be super chalk, then I see no reason to play the Rock. That their ceiling projection is so low in comparison to other teams on the slate that the only way that I can make up those points is in relative value to David Peterson. So to me, same for Frankie Montas, same for Seattle. So now Seattle, at least they get a little bit more. So we're getting up a little bit closer.
I have the Rockies with a 24% chance to score 0 runs. It's second worst.
Score 0 runs.
Score 0 runs. 24% chance. The Padres, I have it at 25.8% chance.
Oh.
So I would be my projections very much respect Brandon Woodruff and that Brewers bullpen. So that would be me. I wouldn't touch the Rockies with a 10-foot pole most slates. So that doesn't surprise me. But yeah,
but I'm not. The point that I'm trying to make is that I look through and I go, okay, Peterson, Montas, like the Mariners against Montas project very poorly. But anything can happen in baseball. So like I'm more interested in the lower ceiling teams when the pitchers are going to be owned. If the pitchers are not going to be like the Mets, to me, those are the teams on this. The worst teams on the slate are the Mets, the Mariners, and the Rockies. Now, if Gomber, Montas, and Peterson are the cheap, those 7K or below pitchers, the SP2 types. If this own, so for instance, let's say Montas ends up 45% owned, Peterson 15, Gomber 10. You know what that means? I play a ton of Seattle.
Yeah.
But I don't play Rocky stacks or Met stacks. So it has nothing to do with me playing which team do I think is going to do better. It's which team gives me more relative value against the field. It would be Montas against Montas. Doesn't mean I don't play Montas. I may have Montas in some other lineups. Now, if it's the other way around and Peterson's 45% owned, Montas is 20%, and Gomber's 10%, then it looks like I'm playing Rockies today, right? Because I get relative value on David Peterson. Now, here's the interesting part. What happens if it's 20% Gomber, 20% Montas, and 20% Peterson? It's quite possible I don't play any of those stacks. Because the pitchers, none of those three pitchers are owned enough for me to make up the relative value of playing them. So it's more likely that if they're all 20% owned, that I just play a lot of those pitchers. That I'm playing a lot of lineups with two, like I'm playing Montas Peterson lineups more than that. So really, this choice that I'm going to make on the bottom here of these 12 teams on whether or not I'm even going to have them in my player pool at all comes down to the pitcher ownership against them. Because I need to make up that projection somehow, right? If I'm going to take on a team that has a 17-point lower ceiling than the top team on the slate, how am I going to make up those 17 points? Well, in relative value, by it being against, if it's against a chalk pitcher, then every point I get, my 3 points that I get are actually 5 points against half of the field because, Montas is getting -2 on every run that I get. So now I'm able to split the difference with, 40%, 50% of the field. But all this type of stuff is in the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. So we're going to check out the course, theoryofdfs.com. But this is the application of it. But I mean, I'm doing the same process as you, James. Just my process, I guess, is a little bit more manual.
I tried to make it so that all of my stuff just runs by itself. So
but you're good at this. See, I can't do that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I do the same thing that you do. I still look at how many points I expect teams to score. I look at home run projections. I look at, overall team projections. I look where the value is. I see the Tigers are the top of my 8+ runs metric right now. And I'm like, okay, well, that's always fun. So I look at the same stuff that you do. It's just that it's in a different format. It's maybe in percentages instead of raw points. Like,
well, yeah, I could bring that up. I mean, we don't have that screen available yet.
Right. Yeah. But you'll get
that's the RG, but it's not the back projections that they use for that. But yeah, but it's the same. I'm doing the same. We're getting to the same place.
Right. Yeah.
It's yours is just a little bit more automated.
Yep.
Me, I do it much more manually.
It's because you're an old man.
No, it's not because I'm an old man.
No, it's because you're a boomer.
No, well, I know boomer program. I don't know any learn. I need to learn. This is what I try.
What you're telling me is that you know boomer programming and that you do manual boomer things, and that
I'm not a boomer.
Sounds like you're a boomer.
I'm a Gen X. I'm not even close. My parents are boomers. No, I just always found James that I've always learned programming based on what I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I need, like back in the day where I was doing, SQL and Perl and stuff like that. JavaScript, obviously, that's not a programming language. It's neither a SQL, but whatever. Is it worth me learning Python? Is it worth me learning R if I can accomplish what I can accomplish like without that expertise?
No, the reason why you learn it is if you want to move past what you currently are able to do. Right. And if you're fine with where you're at, then you don't need to improve that. Like,
well, I should be looking to improve it. It's just that I need to get the background information of just even how to program, right? It's just like my Excel. Like I know the basics of Excel.
How to make a graph.
Right. I know how to make a graph. Right. I know how to, I'm going to put something in this column and it's going to compute depending on whatever. I would see, this is what I mean. Like I could make a simple scraper in Perl.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to have a server. I mean, it would be so pointless to why I need to have a web server in order to run it. And then just have to brush up on my regular expressions.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that would be, why am I going through all of that when it's probably much simpler now in 2021 to do it a different way?
Right. Just get Selenium on a Python environment, man. Just scrape
that's
anything.
What I mean. See, this is all the stuff that I need to learn. But then I go, well, if I could do it my manual way, if I could be directionally right, like compared to some of the top players, like 95, I'm like 95%, 98% of the way there. Like I get to that point anyway. So it's like, then I look and I go, for the extra 2% and the 2 for 5%, should I be like taking Python classes?
So here's the question. Maybe we can talk about this more next week because I know that we're running out of time. But the question is, if you were to automate parts of your process, what would the return on your investment of time be against what you are currently doing? And if it is more, if you're able to like shave off 2 hours a day, like, would that be worth it? What about 3 hours? That's when you have to like think about it, because the only reason
none of this would shave off hours. But the way that I play, none of this would shave off hours in any sense.
And that's why you don't need to learn it. Like
I tell you, I could build lineups in 10 minutes with the process that I do manually.
Right. So that's the question though, is the only reason to automate anything in life is to save the time that it takes you to do things, because then you make more money in less time.
But to me, it's not the time thing. It's the accuracy.
Sure. But I mean, if you're able to program the same way that you think, like I can.
Yeah. But am I thinking accurately? The point of me learning Python is so I can make calculations that aren't just like, that they look under on. I'm playing 14% of that. Like, where did that number come from? It just came. Okay, it sounded good. Like that sounds right. Like
I would like to introduce you to something that we call RAND in the industry.
Right. No, I've done that before, and I've done that before.
Yeah, that's
how to put my lineups in contests with 2 minutes to go. RAND, like Where it goes, it goes. There's no, like, a lot of times I organize it by like size of the field.
Mhm.
So like my higher projected lineups go into smaller contests, but sometimes I don't organize it well, and it just like I have 2 minutes to go, and it's just
Rand.
right, just wherever it went, right? Just I guess this one's in the $3 contest, and this one's in the $4, and this one's in the 15. I don't know. I don't know. So for me, the learning the stuff, and obviously the learning curve is going to be a little easier for me, since I've already learned like scripting language. Like that's why I can't call like JavaScript isn't a programming language. It's scripted. Like HTML is a markup language. Like that's not even
right.
Like I know the web stuff. Like Perl is a programming language to some extent.
I was just going to say, it's kind of a coding language.
It's kind of right. It's kind of whatever, but it's still like, I understand the syntax. I understand the mechanics of like whatever it is. It's just that like I've always just only used it for stuff that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to justify if I could. I don't think the edge is that thin in DFS yet, where my directionally correct approach needs to be as precise.
I don't think it'll ever get there for MLB.
But you think for basketball, maybe?
For basketball, yeah. I think we're pretty close on basketball. I don't think we'll ever get there for MLB. I don't think we'll ever get there for NHL, because they're both so event oriented, and like we're dealing with like non-binomial distributions, and you just, so much of it is up to variance. But NBA, since it's so linear, I think we're pretty close. NFL,
there'll always be soft money in NFL.
There's always going to be soft money, and there's always going to be people that think that there are no fail things, and that's where you like gain edge in that. So I think NFL is still probably going to be fine, but NBA, man, especially after this last NBA season, people are doing. I don't even want to talk about NBA. Well, let's just get to the playoffs and like we'll figure it out before next year.
Didn't Tibbs like what happened yesterday with the Knicks?
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
He plays these guys like 7 million minutes a game, and then like not in the playoffs.
No, yeah, and Snyder doesn't want to play his guys' playoff minutes either. And you know, Budenholzer's never going to play Giannis 40 minutes, and like these kinds of things. And you think that you should be able to project what a coach is going to do, and especially Tibbs. It's so stupid, man. Like NBA, the frustrations of NBA come directly from having to get inside the head of coaches, and you just can't. And that's where the main frustrations come. It's such an annoying sport.
Paydirt_DFS on Twitter. Paydirtdfs.com.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Paydirtdfs.com. That is where you can find everything that I build. And you know, the MLB models have been fantastic and a lot of fun, and continue to improve those. So come jump in on that. And League of Legends is back soon now that MSI is done. So like, you know, I'm super big on that stuff. So come hang out.
Follow me, Blender HD on Twitter as usual. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Give me the thumbs. Keeping the apple juice cold today. Go to theoryofdfs.com to pick up the 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. If you like all the stuff that we talk about on Mondays, like it's pretty much in the course, right? It's pretty much most of this stuff. Theoryofdfs.com, and I'll be back like I always am. We'll be going over this 6-game slate tomorrow, right? Review it, and then we have some good slates this week, right? 6-game, and then we have bigger slates, and then we have a split slate, and then Thursday there's an early one. Okay, whatever. It's MLB.
Today's a good one. Today's a good one.
But today is fine, and I'll see you tomorrow because I'm here Mondays through Fridays, 11 a.m. Eastern on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.